Since I'll have to dig around in that motor coil, work on getting this freed up, and the motor bracket was screwed in with the set screw for the pivot here, but that is not coming out the way that that other machine, the Muller, came apart. So clearly the Muller had been taken apart and loosened up before it was at some point. Kind of decide whether I want to try and knock this free or nice thing about the Model 20 is that since the top shaft is just pinned to this gear here, the top rocker is pinned to the gear, you don't have to worry about retiming it like that Muller. So I am going to find a punch, and I'm going to try and punch this pin out so I can clean that. And well, as you can see, I have reassembled the motor, the little Singer JI from that Model 20. I opened it up, I hooked a new wire on to the coil and tested the coil, and the coil seems to be open, so this motor can't get rescued. It's always a good question when you see a motor with the wires broke off. Sometimes they're just wear and tear and use, but if they're cut flush, there's usually an indicator that it's got bigger problems. So had to try though. Too bad the coil is burnt out though. Well, this little 20, as we know, the motor is no good for it, but I can reassemble the rest of the machine and get it working. And then that will at least allow me to test it. So I'm going to start with our upper beam here. There's a shouldered screw here that holds the top beam in. And then on this version of the Model 20, the end of the beam has a divot for the pin that was on the needle bar here. Presser bar spring, lift arm for the presser bar spring. I think that's this screw. This is another small shouldered screw so that the presser bar lift pivots freely. Lifter is working. Now we'll put our lower shaft in. Oh, right. Lower shaft goes in before the top pivot, because the top pivot has to go in the slot by lifting and hooking it in. And I missed the peg on the needle bar. There we go. Don't bend this bar to get over that peg, or else it'll start to fatigue out, and then it won't be holding on to that needle bar peg properly. So, alright, now with our lower shaft in place, there's not a hole in the lower shaft, so the set screw has to press on one or the other side of the slot here, because the set screw goes through the feed drive cam, and it presses on either side of this slot that our hook goes into. Okay, and I oriented this the right way around so that the needle bar is down and the hook is on top here. So then I can put the so the hook is up and the cam is down for our feed dogs. But we need to set those in place before we get the hook fastened in. And those are this shouldered screw. Screw here is longer. That screw does have to snug up enough to clamp the hook in place. Alright, now I need to get our... Alright, well, I went fishing for a screw, but you'll also have noticed earlier that I forgot to put this clip on here, and this is what keeps the presser foot aligned properly. So the clip goes in, and then the shouldered screw with the lifter, and that way the presser foot does not get twisted and in the way of the needle bar. Feed control arm here has the shoulder bolt and a compression washer, and that's what helps, or that's what keeps it from rotating if you don't set it or during operation. So we got to get both of those pieces in. There we go. Wiggle until it gets up on the shoulder. Oh, popped all this apart, but have not been paying close attention to the order it went back together in. So sometimes there. Got to get our return feed spring back in there, and that requires a little bit of room because this return feed spring hooks here, but then it's just pins in, and then that feed is what springs the, or that spring is what pushes the return feed back. Right, tensioner here. We've got this piece that's stamped 1 and slips over the spool pin, and then this little clamping tension piece has 3 stamped on top and is blank on the bottom. So make sure that it's facing up. And with that number on top, this screw lines everything up. And now when we turn, the bar bumps this little finger and loosens that to let more thread through. Get our clean tension discs on here. A little beehive spring. And our knurled nut for the tensioner. And then our hand wheel. The shaft does have a flat on it, so we need to face that to our set screw hole. And with that polished up here, I'll drip a bit of oil on it as well. With this shaft cleaned and oiled, this hand wheel is going to turn a lot better. One thing about the Singer 20, unlike that Muller 12, or Miller 12, or Mueller 12, or whatever you want to call it, or however you want to say it, since the arm here to run the top shaft, or the needle bar, is pinned on the lower gear, you don't have to time the two halves of the machine, because that Muller had the gear on top and the gear on the bottom, and you had to set both gears when you put the hand wheel on. So and I should have oiled this shaft when I put it in, but yeah. Moving a lot nicer than it was. Alright. Now, this did have a 12x1 needle in it, and it looks like the eye isn't rusty or anything, so I guess I'll put this in and give it a shot. And the 12x1 needles do have a flat, so that they can be lined up with the flat against the set screw in the needle bar here. And now we're gonna... Okay. That timing is correct, and now I'm seeing there is a tiny gap here. I'm going to try this out, but if I have to, I may have to loosen the set screw and bring the hook out a teeny bit so it's closer to the needle.